Hey, what's up, guys? Hello, world beyond my doorstep. Thank you for coming and welcome to Entropy Sorted. Entropy Sorted 5, to be exact, 5.0. Oh, hey, bud. I was going to start this actually by showing you guys Ryder, like introducing you to Ryder. He actually sleeps right. Hey, bud. Oh, come on, say hi. This is Ryder. He sleeps right over there while I'm recording these podcasts. And he's always there. He's my ride or die homie. And you know, I don't know how far I'd get in life without him. All right. So, anyways, um, I think I've got a pretty good one for you guys today. Um, I think that it's pretty relevant. Relevant topics that. Hold on just a second. My dog's actually bringing me his toy, so I'm gonna pause this recording and play with him a little bit, and then we'll get back into it. Okay. Sorry about that. You know, gotta make sure I keep my priorities straight. Um, so yeah, I think that today I've got a pretty decent set of messages for you, and I think that this podcast is going to be uh, much better because of some feedback that I received, and encouragement. Thank you for the encouragement, and thank you even more for the feedback, because it's like the fact that somebody would offer me a tool that makes me better, at no gain to themselves. It's not like this person benefited from giving me something that would make me better. He just wanted to make me better, and that's an incredibly humbling feeling. And I'm super grateful. I love feedback. Um, so I'm going to be a little bit more intentional about addressing specific topics. The first of which, by the way, I did write it down, but the first of which is transformation and how transformation happens, for better or for worse. So this is a topic that I think is discussed in many other platforms, and in many other ways, but in my experience, it is rarely discussed in such a way that people listening can really, you know, really visualize or really kind of relate to or empathize or understand. Typically when transformation is discussed, there's a lot of cliches. There's like, you gotta work hard every day, and you gotta chip away at it, and you might not see results in the first week, you might not see results in the first month, but after a year, you'll look back and see how far you've come. And it's like, yeah, that's all true, right? But that's a very like top down view of what transformation is. And so it still feels mysterious and distant. So I'm going to talk about transformation from the ground up perspective, and I'm also going to talk about it in the context of negative transformation, um, because I think that negative transformation is something that more people have experienced, right? Like if we've all experienced a positive transformation, then we wouldn't all be so damaged. The world has gotten to where it's at today, slowly through this negative transformation, and I think that illustrating it, highlighting that, and talking about that. not only brings a little bit of context, clarity, and understanding to our current state of affairs, but it also provides the framework for what realistic positive transformation looks like. So I will use myself as the example because I'm the most readily available example that I know of. By the way, there's light shining off the top of my dome, and it gives my head a flat look. And it's kind of funny looking. Whatever. And this is actually my first time recording during the day. I realized it's kind of just occurred to me that this is the first time I've recorded during the day. Anyways, all right. So transformation from the negative context, and relating to me specifically, what that means is a fall from grace, if you will. It means how did I degenerate or deteriorate, or I'm looking for the word atrophy. How did I go from being this healthy and athletic kid? I played football, I wrestled, I pole vaulted. I used to run. I think my best, which this isn't impressive, by the way, especially if you're a runner. I'm not bragging, but because this isn't by any means impressive. But I think my best run was 3 miles in 21 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. But how did I go from being really fit and athletic and physically active, and let myself reach a point where it's I can't even run a mile without getting winded, I just the other day I just did some light ab workouts around my house. I did some lunges, and I did some wall sits, right? And my legs are so sore and my abs are so sore, right? And I can maybe do I can probably do 30 push-ups, but that's not impressive or anything. And so what happened was I was in a place where I was in shape, and I felt comfortable with my athleticism. I had reached I didn't have any aspirations to be some Olympic athlete or anything. And so because I got comfortable, I was all right, I can relax now. I don't have to focus so hard on working out, right? Now I can just maintain. And there's truth to that. However, you just got to be careful because it's a slippery slope, right? At that point, you can either maintain, or that is the marker, the starting point for a dramatic degradation. And so once you make that decision, okay, I'm at a comfortable place, this is where I can maintain, you start to ease up a little bit on whatever it is, right? For me, it was my physical fitness. So I stopped worrying about what I ate, and I started eating, sort of whatever I want. I stopped exercising quite so much because, I was whenever I felt like exercising, I was still in shape, and I was this is fine. I'm in pretty good shape still. And a couple months later, a while later, I still feel as physically capable as ever. But I do notice I'm looking a little bit out of shape, but I don't really care about how I look. I still feel physically fit. I still feel physically fine. And so then, I continued to just sort of be complacent. And again, another big, long, extended period of time. And then one day, I remarked to myself, like, okay, I am definitely a little bit out of shape from where I used to be and from where I wanted to be, from where I'm comfortable. But it's really just very slight, and it's not that big of a deal. I'll turn my attention, back to being fit and eating healthy later. I can't deal with that right now. And so then I maintained course. And the thing is, it's not like you just wake up one day and it's like you're in shape, and then you wake up one day and it's like, holy crap, I'm out of shape. How did I get here? It is a series of incremental realizations, right? Like throughout the whole time, I'm realizing, like, it's occurring to me, like, okay, I have regressed a little bit, but it's such a small amount that I don't really care. It's not a big deal, right? It's such a small amount that I don't really care. It's such a small amount, and then you hit those milestones. Okay, now I'm actually not in as good of shape as I want to be, and you are aware of how you got there, but you don't really recall all of those times that, you've remarked to yourself, like, okay, I've lost a little ground. And so, you just maintain. And then eventually, you reach the point where it's like, okay, I cannot run a full mile, without like walking. How did I get here? And I don't know why I even bother asking myself, how did I get here? Because I remember every little bit of ground that I gave up. I remember giving up each one, but because each occurrence was so slight, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it. And every time I hit a milestone, like, of I've lost a lot of ground now, I would think something of it, but then each of these, like, the slow process would continue, so I'd go down, hit a milestone, have this kind of like, oh crap, like, look how far down I've gone. And then I'd keep going down, but because, again, the increments are so small, I never pay attention to it until I hit the next milestone. And that is how, that's how people, fall from grace. That's how people become a shell of who they were, right? Like, that is how you slip into, depression and despair and depravity. It's generally from an accumulation of tiny, tiny, tiny things, right? It's consistent, like, ground given. And I mean, on the flip side, right, it's the exact same thing for positive transformation, right? And this is what I was saying, that 10,000 foot view people say earlier, like, you start working out, and the progress, the ground you gain is so slight, right, that you don't really think, that this is that this is doing anything, right? You don't think that there's, like, why am I even wasting my time exercising and working out when, like, I am not making, like, I'm progressing so stinking slow. But then if you keep at it, then eventually you'll hit a mile marker and you're like, oh wow, I've hit this mile marker. I guess I might as well just keep at it, even though it still doesn't seem like it's doing anything. Like, so the real trick to change is that don't look for it, because when you look for change, you're not going to see it. And when you don't see it, you think that your course is correct. I think I'm fine, not eating right and not exercising because I don't seem to be degrading, at a crazy rapid pace. And I continue to think that until I reach this place where it's like, how did I get here? And I know exactly how I got there. Same thing goes for, transforming in a positive way. That is, you get on a different course and you don't look for transformation because you're not going to see it. And eventually, one day, you'll just like look back and say like, wow, this is where I'm at now. But yeah, so there's no, I don't want to give you any cliches about like, you just got to work at it, because that is the truth. I'm not saying that all of the cliches and all of these motivational speakers, I'm not saying that they're wrong. I mean, they're absolutely right. But like, what does that actually look like? Well, it actually looks like the exact same thing that deterioration looks like. Uh, you give a little, give a little, give a little, give a little, and before you know it, you're in a hole. Well, that's also how it's going to look when you climb out of that hole. You're going to, take a little, take a little. You're going to work hard, work hard, work hard for no apparent reason. But one day you will see the reason. Man, it's a shame that I don't feel like I actually did this idea justice. I, to me, I kind of had like a spiritual or like emotional revelation about this. When I was reflecting on like, how did I get to where I'm at now? And it occurred to me that like, dude, you watched yourself get to this point. Like, you have no right to be surprised or ask like, how did I get here? Because you knew you were coming here. Like, you knew that the course that you were on was leading here, but because you couldn't see the significant changes day to day, you stayed on that course, and now you're here. And then it occurred to me that, okay, well, apparently it, transformation for the better is the same deal. You just got to get on the course for better, and then stay on that course, and better will follow. So I guess I am just saying the same thing that everyone else, spits out, but I had the sort of revelation, even if it's already been like a well-known or well-established idea. So, and that's really what matters, is when your paradigm shifts. Like when you know something to be true, and when you know something to be true, but it doesn't fully click, then you don't really actually benefit from that knowledge. But once that knowledge settles in and becomes your own, then you can leverage that knowledge, and things change. So yeah. Anyways, that is how transformation happens. It is a very, very slow process. It is a process that you cannot observe, but it is a process that is dictated by the course that you want to follow. So if you want to follow a course to financial stability, then pick that path and stay committed to it, and you will become financially stable. If you want to be physically fit, pick that path, commit to it, and you will become physically fit. And if you are not concerned about your physical fitness, and you get on an unhealthy path, you will wind up eventually in an unhealthy place. And so if you've ever experienced a negative transformation, the positive transformation is the exact same thing, just in reverse. Okay, so now transitions. Oh God, I actually did take some time to rehearse how I would transition from one topic into the next. But now that I'm here, uh, I've kind of lost that smooth transition that I had planned. So so I've collected my thoughts, and we're back on track. I'm on the track to having smooth transitions, so I'm just going to stick on that path, and one day I'll get there. So speaking of the other side of the coin, you know, in the way that the slow degradation that has never seemed important led you to a negative place. On the flip side, you know, slow effort will eventually lead you to a better place. I wanted to talk to you guys about that, you know, another area of life that principle reigns true. And that is whatever, you know, all of the different people that you encounter in terms of like the role that they play in your life, you play that role in someone else's life. So that is to say, if you've ever met someone who, you know, just seemed like they were dead set on, you know, just jamming you up or like frustrating you, or like if you've ever met somebody that, you know, you thought like, man, you know, that person needs to get their act together, or, you know, man, that person is person's kind of selfish, right? Or man, that person has absolutely no social skills. Whatever it is, you have been that person from somebody else's perspective. And this is a very difficult and humbling realization to make. And I actually just today received a really difficult example of it. So I'll give you another little segue. I got coffee with some ladies from my church. We are like actually in a group together. And one of the ladies was telling me about a woman that goes to our church. And this woman is the type of woman who, you know, is always trying to insert herself into everything, right? So someone's brother died, and this woman dated the brother 15 years and, you know, prior, 15 years prior, right? And when he died, she's like, oh, you know, like, I'm so distraught. Like, she's making a big deal about it, and she, you know, showed up to the funeral and, you know, tried to make a big deal about it. And it's like she's, you know, trying to insert herself. It almost feels like, or seems like. And I mean, I've known people like that throughout my life, and they are terribly frustrating. And you know, I'm hearing about this woman, and I'm like, oh gosh, like, you know, those kinds of people are the worst. And apparently, that woman wanted to join our group, and the lady that I was talking to was like, I'm not really comfortable with that. Like, I don't really want, you know, I don't want her. She does need to be a group. She does need community, but like our group is not the one for her. Because there's going to be like conflicts because, you know, when she tries to, you know, like talk about or insinuate herself into my friend's life, it's going to come across as abrasive to my friend because her brother just died and she's trying to mourn her brother. She doesn't need this woman, acting up or like whatever. So I'm sure all of you have met people like that too. And nobody likes people like that. And honestly, my reaction to hearing about this was like pity, because I'm like, man, it must really suck to be that woman, because the reason why she's trying to insinuate herself is because she feels lonely or unloved, and she just wants to be involved in something. She wants to be a part of something. You know what I mean? Like, so I felt bad for her at the same time as like annoyed by her. Like I wouldn't want to hang around that person, but I sincerely hope that she finds people who, are her tribe. Well, here's the thing. I didn't know it, but I am that woman in another context right now. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, because I am involved in another social group, and that I was brought into another social group by a friend of mine that I work with. So this guy that I work with, I think I may have talked about him on this podcast before, but this guy that I worked with brought me into this social group, and it's I don't know. It's always seemed kind of weird. The dynamics have always seemed a little bit strained. Like I didn't quite, mesh with this group. I meshed with the guy. I really liked the guy that I work with, but the group, it just didn't feel right. Well, the guy that I work with, his son has had some medical issues, and it's very concerning, and everyone who knows and loves the guy that I work with, my friend, we're all concerned for sure. And so I was attending a meeting with this social group, and my friend that I worked with wasn't there, and since he wasn't there, I wanted to talk to the social group about, like, hey, what can we do for this guy, right? Like, this guy's he's having a hard time. He's having a rough situation. Like, let's try to like raise some money for him, right? Let's try to like put on a bake sale or something like that. Like, I don't, I wanted to find a way to help him, and in my mind, I'm like, this is his social group that he brought me into, right? Like, all of these people loved him. So clearly all of these people would totally be on board with trying to help him out. And it seemed like their reaction was way less enthusiastic. And I was super confused by that. I was like, what's going on here? Why is it that, like, it almost seems like they're annoyed by me, bringing this up? And actually, one dude even suggested that I was gossiping. He was like, he told me basically, like, look, man, you're like talking about him when he's not here. That's basically just gossiping. And I was like stunned. I'm like, what the heck, man? Like, are you serious right now? Like, you guys are his like friends. You should be on board, right? But that's just my perspective. But hearing about this woman today, who, dated this person 15 years before, and was like all dramatic, yada, 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 it made me realize that, like, that is why this group that I was, the other group that I was a part of, that is why they reacted the way they did. To them, I was just some new guy, because I only met this person Well, I started working back last almost a year ago. I started with this company, but I've only been like physically located in this office. It's a long story, for about 4 or 5 months. So I've only face to face been working with this guy for like 4 or 5 months. Um, and so to them, it's like, okay, bro, you've only like really been friends with him for like 5 months. And, you're sitting here like trying to champion, like, hey, let's let's do this for him, let's do that for him, let's raise money for him, blah 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 blah. Like, to them, I was that person who appeared to be just trying to insert themselves, because they wanted attention, right? Like, to them, I was trying to take Alan's situation. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name. I was trying to take my friend's situation though, and make it about me. Um, and I didn't mean that. Like, sincerely, my intentions were not at all to take my friend's situation and make it all about me. I was not trying to be that person who, like, someone knows someone else. Person A knows person B. Person A doesn't really ever care about person B, right? Person B dies, and then all of a sudden, person A, oh, they were my best friend. We were so close, like that kind of person, right? Like those attention seeking people. That was not at all my motivation, right? Like, I just really wanted to help this guy because he's my friend, and I was grateful that he brought me into this social group. It never occurred to me that I might be coming off or coming across like that person who is just like, oh, I'm trying to rally behind this person because they're in, controversial, they're in a controversial time in their life, and I'm trying to like be a hero or a champion. That was not my motivation. But I'm telling you guys about this because even though that wasn't my motivation, even though that thought never occurred to me, um, I should have been aware, and handled the situation with more tact. I should have approached the situation differently. Um, I mean, I did actually like expressly say, like, I don't want this person to know that I'm trying to like raise money to help them, because I don't want them to find out if we were able to do something to help him. I don't want him to find out it came from me or us. I want it just to be something that, he gets this support, and that's the end of it, because it's not about, him being grateful to us, or like, it's about getting him the help he needs. I was very, very explicitly clear about that. But still, I guess somehow, I came across, as that woman who, was just trying to insert herself in the situation, and that's embarrassing. Like, I mean, that is like terribly embarrassing. Like, because of how I viewed the woman, and because of, the way that I uh, sort of judge or react to those attention-seeking people who, only ever seem to care about somebody when things go wrong because they like the attention, or whatever. Because of how much I dislike that, knowing that that is the way that other people have perceived me. I mean, it's terribly embarrassing. Um, but I mean, all I can do is try to be aware, moving forward, and all I can do is try to try not to let that person be me again. I mean, I do have the comfort of knowing that no, that was not me, right? Like, I do have the personal security of knowing, like, whatever they think, I don't care, because like I truly just wanted to help. But I just want you all to be aware that regardless, you might have a certain perspective about who you are, and the impact that you have on other people, right? You might have a certain narrative, about yourself in your story, or you might have a certain narrative about yourself in someone else's story, but I just advise you all, I'm cautioning you all to be very careful, to consider things from somebody else's story, right? Like, make sure that you don't become blinded by your own perception, basically, because it can lead to some very embarrassing misunderstandings. I hope that this translates. Please let me know in the comments if this little segue, like, or if this portion of the podcast is translating into anything meaningful for you, because it's a very important lesson. You might avoid a very embarrassing situation, or you might avoid a very taxing or stressful misunderstanding if you stay vigilant for the way that others are perceiving you, because if you don't correctly interpret the way others perceive you, you might end up being like that pathetic person who yeah, whatever. Anyways, so that social group is that social group's actually also a heavy influence for the next topic of conversation, which is, I say conversation, it's not a conversation, it's a monologue. I just talk. I love to hear myself talk, apparently. Anyways, yeah, so that social group, man, I learned a lot from this social group. And so I think really, in the end, even though I am leaving this social group, in the end, it was a very, very positive experience for me because of how much I learned from them. Because they also taught me, this next topic, which is the residual effects or the subsequent consequences of being in, the wrong social circles, right? Or being in the wrong tribe. Again, this is a very explored topic, right? There's a saying as old as time, and they say, you are the company you keep, right? And that is absolutely true, right? If you have a social group, you become more like them, they become more like you. You influence the people you interact with, they influence you. You build camaraderie, you build a sense of identity and friendship, right? Like, all of that is very true. And it is all very public, like, common knowledge, right? But what is less common knowledge are what the effects of being in the wrong social group can be. And they are critical. They are, like, seriously, they can be life-changing in a terrible way, or life-changing in a profoundly positive way. So what are these residual effects, like, of being in the wrong social group? Well, when you're in the wrong social group, it can make you question reality. Like, and I'm not being dramatic. I'm sincere. Like, I genuinely mean that. Like, being in the wrong social group can make you question reality, and it can literally drive you insane. It can make you think you are crazy. And it's not like that social group is even maliciously like, trying to do that. It's not like the social group is evil, right? It's just that it's not right for you. Um, and so let's dive back into, my lived example. Um, my friend brought me into that social group that I was telling you guys about. And like I mentioned, um, it didn't it didn't quite feel right. Like something like it didn't seem like there was like a fit. Like, something seemed a little bit off. But, me and my arrogance, I guess, kind of, I've always been pretty social. You know what I mean? Like I've always been, that guy, like my ex-girlfriend, I shouldn't be quoting my ex-girlfriend, but my ex-girlfriend used to tell me all the time, like, that she thought it was incredible how I could walk into any room, with any group of people and just like make friends, right? And like just start chatting about things, and how um, she used to remark on like how personable I was or whatever. Not that I'm like have that image of myself. I just enjoy interacting with people, and I just sincerely care about people, and I do what I like to do. Like, I like to talk to people. I like to engage with people. And because I like doing it, that shows in the interaction. But I enter this social circle. I enter this group, and it doesn't quite feel right. And I am convinced that, you know what, like, if I am just friendly enough with these guys, right? Like if I show these guys that I don't have ill intention, or like, whatever, like if there is anything like abrasive, it's clearly going to be some sort of misunderstanding that we'll all laugh about later, right? Like that was my thinking, because I'm thinking like, oh, I can fit in any social group. And so I stuck around, and I started to feel like not not ostracized, but we'd be having a discussion, and it would seem to me as if like everything I contributed to this discussion um, was met with agitation, right? And I'm like I don't understand why. Like it seems like this person will contribute, and the room, you know, feeds off of that contribution and contributes back like a normal dialogue and discussion, right? But it was like, if you think of it like music, right? And everyone's contribution to to the discussion is a note in the music, right? And it seemed like every time I would speak, or like contribute, or participate, engage, whatever, it seemed like a wrong note being played. You know what I mean? Like out of tune, like out of key. And so then, I start thinking like, okay, am I being weird? Like, what's like what's going on here? Um, and so then I start like overanalyzing, right? Like, well, what was it that I said that put an abrupt like interruption to the discussion, or like what was it that I said that was met with such a um, harsh reaction, or met with such disapproval, like and then you try to course correct, right? You try to say like, okay, well, like if they didn't like it when I don't know, thought of things from this perspective, or challenged this idea, then let me just keep quiet in those moments. I don't know how to describe it, but I've been going to this social group for nearly 5 months now, because I just moved to the area. I don't know anybody here. I know the guy I work with, and I know the people in this group, and that's it, right? So pretty much all of my social interactions are with like at work or with this social group, um, and I'm starting to think like, man, like, am I actually like socially retarded? Like, you know, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I actually just really disagreeable? You know, am I actually just like really obnoxious? Like what is wrong with me, right? Like I'm constantly thinking like, what the hell is wrong with me? Every time, you know, I engage with these people, it just feels so uncomfortable and it feels so abrasive. And like I'm willing, like I want to be a part of this group, and like I've asked, I asked my friend separately, and he's like, no, you're definitely welcome. They'll love having you here, and it's like, okay, like no one's complained, right? No one has any has ever confronted me about anything. Like nobody has any direct criticism, but it still just seems like I'm like not meshing here. Um, and it's not a very pleasant way to feel for especially a span of months. You know, and nobody will even like talk to me about it. Like nobody will just say like, well, we don't really like that. You know, you try to explore topics too deeply. We don't really like that. You know, you always play the devil's advocate. Like nobody will like say anything to me. It's just strange. Um, and and I'm starting to think that that's who I am. Like I'm starting to think like I am just unlikable. Like I am just abrasive. I am like, you know, I start to believe like that is something, a quality about me, you know. And then I joined this other social group that I was telling you about in the church with those two ladies I went and got coffee with. And oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like our conversation, like our dialogue, right? Like you know, our understanding and empathy and connection. Like it's all like very positive. Like even when we're talking about negative things, like it feels, you know, good. Like it feels like I'm normal again. Like, and actually I texted one of these ladies today and I said, thank you so much for like talking to me today, because like I feel like a human being again. And it really just sort of, it really stressed the importance of, you know, finding, you know, your social group, finding your tribe. Um, and that's a lesson that I never really learned before, because like I said, you know, like I've always felt like I could go and just mingle wherever, whenever, because I love talking to people and people usually respond to that, whatever. And this was really the first time that I, you know, tried to engage in a social circle where like I just wasn't the right fit, I guess. You know, like this is the first time that I've really just engaged in a circle that um, didn't want to engage with me. No, that's not the word. Well, this was just the first like real negative. Um, I mean, I've had negative social experiences before, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. And yeah, like I didn't know what was going on, because I had good intentions. I had nothing but love and kindness in my heart, right? I really wanted to make it work, and I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be fake. I'm not going to sacrifice who I am, but I figured, you know, like if we can just clear up any misunderstandings, and nothing seemed to work, and you know, I was driving myself crazy about it, and I was starting to question, you know, whether or not, like I was starting to question like who I was, like if I was like socially inept or something. And it just turns out that they just, you know, weren't my tribe. And when I finally found my tribe, when I started interacting with people who were more like on my wavelength, suddenly every single thing I say isn't controversial or abrasive. Um, it actually stimulates the response that I'm looking for. Because let's be real, when you say anything to anyone, to a certain level, you are trying to stimulate a certain response, right? If you ask a question, you are trying to stimulate an answer. Um, if you make an observation, you may not be trying to stimulate a particular or like specific remark, but chances are that you are trying to stimulate someone to think of something, right? Like if I say, "Hey, this cake tastes really good," I might not be deliberately trying to get you to say, "Yeah, I like the icing," but I am trying to get you thinking about, do I like this cake, right? Like you might come back and say, yeah, I didn't really like it. And that's perfectly okay. But the point is, I was trying to stimulate you thinking about the cake. Um, and it seemed like in that first social group, every time that I, spoke, the intended response or the intended um, uh, way it was supposed to be received, uh, it was like received entirely differently, and I thought that I didn't know how to communicate, and it's not that I don't know how to communicate, it's simply that that group just wasn't right for me, but it is, by the way, incredibly refreshing to be around people like literally after, well, so this is probably our third week meeting, but like after 3 weeks, it's just like, ah, God, like I can breathe again, and like, like, I mean, I'm not mad at that other group. Like, they're all really good people. They're all great people, and I respect and admire like every single one of them, um, and I don't, resent them or anything. I don't feel like they tried to ostracize me. I've realized now that I was actually the problem, and the way that I was the problem is that I wasn't meshing, and I was trying to figure it out and force it, right? Like I was trying to make it work when I shouldn't have. I should have just recognized, you know, it's not me, it's not them, it's just not right. Um, so think about that in your own lives, right? Are there any relationships that you have, friends, or even romantic relationships, that you feel that little splinter, that little bit of abrasiveness, that you're like, yeah, this isn't right, right? Like this person isn't really interpreting me the way I want to be interpreted, or understanding me the way that I want to be understood, or like or I don't seem to understand anything that this person is trying to say to me, and it leads to miscommunication. Doesn't mean that you have to cut them off and say you're not my friend anymore, right? Doesn't mean you have to feel any sort of negativity towards them, but you may want to consider the idea that they aren't, you know, supposed to be part of your tribe, and you may want to start trying to find social interactions and social engagement elsewhere, right? Keep the friend, keep the connection, right? Like help them out if they need it. But I promise, like you will find yourself so much happier, and so much more comfortable when you find people who vibe with you. And the way that a lot of you, the way that everyone, not everyone, but one of the major causes today of depression and isolation and loneliness is this very problem. You know, you feel like you're crazy because it's like you feel like you don't really like fit in here and you don't really fit in there, and like you don't like when this sort of thing goes on for a prolonged period, it can start to change the way you think, right? And because you haven't found your tribe yet, you start to think, am I just weird, right? And when you think that, you start to behave that way. I mean, it's a very insidious thing, right? Like, and as a matter of fact, because of my time with that social group, I actually did start to observe like myself being weird, like in the way that I felt weird in that group. I started to observe myself being weird out in other social settings when I normally would flourish, right? And that only seemed to further reinforce this like, weird stigma thing that I had going on in my head. And after just, like I said, 3 weeks with this other group, I'm finding myself in other social settings, much more fluid and comfortable, right? And like I'm having like positive social interactions in the supermarket again, right? Like I'm chatting with people again, right? I'm like I'm actually like being, generally agreeable, I guess. And it's all because I found a group of people um, who I vibe with, right? And so yeah, if you're with a group, I'm going to boil it down. I know I'm repeating myself. I'm talking in circles. Point is, if you're in a social group, it is true that you are the company you keep. It is true that they will have an influence on you and you will have an influence on them. But furthermore, if you are in a social group that you don't quite vibe with or that you aren't on the same wavelength as them, staying in that social group will degrade your ability to socialize outside of that social group. And it will affect your self-esteem. And when you find yourself in a social group that you do truly vibe with, you will find that all of your social interactions start to improve. And if you have been waiting around and you have been looking for that social group and you don't seem to see it anywhere, and you can't seem to find it, this is the takeaway. Like this is the value of this whole little bit, this whole section, this monologue. Do not think that there's something wrong with you. Do not think that you are the problem. Do not think that you need to change. You may need to change. We'll go over that in just a second. But let's say you have, let's say you are passionate about exploring. Again, I'm just going to use myself as an example. Relate this to you however you want. But like I'm passionate about exploring ideas more deeply, right? And when I talk to certain people, they don't really like to dive into topics quite as deep, right? Or they don't really like to dedicate as much time or thinking to certain things. And so over time, it would be easy for me to start saying, I need to stop thinking about things so deeply. I need to stop thinking about things so deeply. And that's going to lead to identity issues because it's who I am. Like, I'm just that way. Like, I just like to think about things deeply and talk about things deeply. So if you're struggling finding your group, don't change who you are because it's only going to make things worse, right? If you feel like if you feel like you know and who you are and you like who you are, um, and you still just can't find a group, keep loving yourself, keep being yourself, and just keep looking. I know it's hard. I know that's a difficult thing to say, but do not succumb to the world. Do not change who you are. Do not bend and break. Do not conform. Like, be true, be sincere, be genuine, you, first and foremost. Because changing or being someone else or being different may ingratiate you into a certain social setting for a little while, but ultimately it will lead to identity issues, and ultimately it'll lead to broken relationships, and it's not good. Okay, so um, don't let negative social interactions drag you down. Just keep looking for the groups that feed your spark. You know what I mean? That feed your energy. Yeah. So, okay. I want to remark on the idea of writing out a script. Gosh, here's a paradigm shift. There are times when you need to change. Remember I said that a second ago, and I said, and we'll talk about that too. I think that I've got the right idea about certain things, but I think that I try to express those ideas, and then I think, maybe it'll make sense this way. Maybe it'll make sense this way. And so then I end up basically saying the same thing 5 different times. And it can be a little bit frustrating or repetitive. So usually, like during a social interaction, the other person will be able to I'll be able to see them nodding, right? So if I say it the first time, they'll nod, or have some sort of visible cue, and I won't have to repeat myself so many times. But in terms of podcasting, because there's no social cues, I'm trying to constantly rephrase things so that the general reception, basically here's one way of putting it that literally everybody can understand. So I realize that I do probably need to script. I do probably need to write out outlines. Today, I did outline, the general topics, but I didn't outline the concise structure in which I was going to approach each topic. And I think that I need to do that, right? And my pride is no, you're a good talker. You always find the right words to say, I feel like I'm pretty good with words. That's what I think about myself, and that I don't need to write out a script. And if I write out a script, that the quality of my message will somehow suffer. I feel like people are going to resonate less. It'll be way less impactful if I start writing it out beforehand. And although I actually still feel that way, cognitively I realize that that's probably not true. That's probably not the case. The truth is that probably if I did write out a script beforehand, and it was a lot more structured, that I may lose some of the sort of free form, innovative um, sort of in the moment, like, real talk type wisdom, right? Like a lot of the times I feel like some of the, best things that I've ever, said, like in terms of not like best as in like, oh, I think that what I say is great. I mean, a lot of the times that I felt like I articulated certain ideas the most accurately were while I was just like expressing to someone, while I'm just talking to someone real time, and the words just kind of come out, right? So I guess I may sacrifice that element a little bit, but I think that what I'll gain in terms of expressing the idea once, and expressing it clearly will offset those little snippets that of from when I say things that make sense. Um, and I can sort of play with it, like free form a little bit, have a script a little bit, develop it, but I definitely need to, because what happens is, when I start repeating myself like that, when I start explaining things and re-explaining them and re-explaining them, people, 90% of the time, people get frustrated hearing the same, you know, um, concept repeated to them over and over, and they tune out. And so as soon as I start rambling, people tune out because they're like, "Oh God, he's just gonna." Like I heard him. Like I listened for the first 5 minutes. I heard what he said in the first 5 minutes. So now I can tune out for the next 30 minutes because I know that he's gonna keep saying the same thing from that first 5 minutes over and over for 30 minutes. And a lot of the times, what that leads to is like, I'll have moved on and said something else, and they won't even realize that I've moved on because they're just assuming that I'm just repeating myself. And so I think that people would listen more closely and more attentively if I were more structured and deliberate. So again, I like being free form. I like winging it. I don't like having a script. I did like having a general outline, and I do like the idea of incorporating smoother transitions. Um, but I think I need to go the full length. I think I need to start writing out, even if I don't follow that script, I need to write the script out, and basically check it off as I talk about it so that once I talk about it once, it's done. And then I move on. Um, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that um, has anybody benefited from a time where I had explained something and then tried to explain it a different way? Like, has anybody like experienced that during a subsequent explanation that it finally clicked for them? I don't know. Uh, I mean, if it is something that people benefit from, then I'm happy to keep rambling. Um, but yeah, I don't expect that to be the case. I expect it to be like, no, dude, we get what you're saying the first time around. You can say it once and move on. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, this is Entropy Sorted 5. Hey, I also wanted to make really fast call to arms. A call to arms for I guess specifically men, because it's not my place to uh, you know basically preach about lifestyle to women because I'm not a woman, but um, in the same way that I was saying, don't sacrifice, who you are or your beliefs or your values. I'd like to, call for men um, to uh, start prioritizing, um, goodness publicly, and that is to say, I would like to see more people um, going out of their way to be kind or helpful to other people deliberately. I would also like to see men, again, specifically, start to be more in tune with and aware of their emotions. And I'd like to start seeing people, and I've addressed this in earlier podcasts too, but I'd like to see guys checking themselves real time. You know, if you have a tendency to have a negative reaction to a certain situation, right? Don't react and then after the fact say, oh, this is how I reacted, and this is how I should have reacted, right? Because yes, that is the first step, like being able to look inward and being able to recognize that you had that reaction and being able to acknowledge that it is bad. That is the first step to being like better, right? Like that is the first step to uh, improvement. But if you don't ever remind yourself when you're having that reaction, like, hey, I know that after I finish having this reaction, I'm going to look back, I'm going to say I felt this way, I'm going to say I shouldn't have acted this way. So like, even though I'm still in the moment and even though I'm still feeling these feelings, I'm not going to react this way. I'm going to react some other way, right? Like I told myself last time, if I got in this situation again, instead of saying this or doing this, I'm going to say or do this. Start catching yourselves real time. And I think that, like, honestly, I think that like society will like see some huge benefits if we can really just like get people to be more like aware of their own internal situation and more aware of other people's internal situations. For example, if your friend tells you that they just won $10,000 and physically you're like, oh hey, that's great, but like pay attention to your like honest to God sincere inner reaction, right? And if you felt like a twinge of like jealousy or like, man, that person doesn't deserve this, or like, if there is like a twinge of like, some negativity in there, right? Don't just be like, no, like, don't just deny it. Like, don't just pretend like you didn't have that feeling, that reaction, right? Drill into it, focus on it. Why did I have that inner, conflict? Why did I feel that negative reaction? Because this person is my friend, aren't they? This person, I'm supposed to be happy for them. So why did I feel that way, right? Like, really start sorting that stuff out, guys. And let's change this. I don't know. That's enough. Now at this point I'm like, preaching, and like I probably sound cliche, and yeah. I mean, I'm not on a high horse. Look, I'm still vaping, right? I didn't record this last night like I said I would. I didn't record For God's Sake 1 last night like I said I would because of chess. Oh man. I was like getting ready to record it, and I was like, one more game of chess, and I played and I lost, and I didn't do what I'm saying. Like I literally didn't do what I'm telling you all to do. I lost that game of chess, and I was like, F it, I'm going to play another one, get this win. And each game takes an hour. So I played another game, took the full stinking hour, and then I lost that one too. And then I was like, oh, like really frustrated. So I played a third, and I lost the third as well. And by that point, it was super late, and I was like, great, now I'm not going to record. Like, now it's too late to record For God's Sake 1. And I should have, I said I would, and I'm not, because I got salty about losing a game of chess. So in the future, if I lose a game of chess, I will try to put it down if I have other things to do. I'm just going to make that stipulation. Like, if I don't have anything else to do, then sure, yeah, I'll play another game. But, yeah. Anyways. Okay, guys. Well, peace out. This is an hour and 15. How do I do it? How does one person, like, steadily talk for an hour and 15 minutes? That's amazing. All right, well, I will speak to you again sometime soon, I hope. And like I said, if you are open to it, if you are interested in it, check out For God's Sake. If you are not, like, if you're anti like organized religion, check it out just to just to explore the top, like, spirituality. Check it out just to discuss spiritual topics, right? Like, just for that sake. Whatever. Shut up, Robert. All right, move on. Okay. Good night, everybody. Take care.